By the time this goes live, I'm sure everyone will have heard that Gab AI is being forced to find a new home by their registrar because of reported hate speech on the site. They're also being painted by news outlets as the home base for the alt-right, something that the owners of Gab vehemently deny, but which, honestly, is blatantly obviously true. Whether they intended it or not, Gab has become the de facto home base for the white supremacist, white nationalist, alt-right, racist online, and it's doing nothing at all for Gab's optics. They originally intended to make Gab a free speech platform where anyone could speak their mind without worrying about being censored, and that's an admirable goal to be sure, but one that's ultimately doomed to failure for one simple reason. If there are no expectations, if there is no accountability, there will be no limits to how far people will try to go. And that's been the case on Gab and to a much lesser degree on Minds. Now, I'm a big fan of free speech, but I expect responsible speech. I expect people to act like decent human beings. You can have reprehensible views, as these white racist assholes do, but so long as you keep it reasonably respectful, I doubt most people are going to care all that much. But that's just not what has happened on Gab, because you can't go more than 5 minutes without having someone post an absolutely absurdly racist screed across the site. Now, I might be able to see it if the racists could control themselves, but by and large, they can't. They have no interest. They're just trolls trying to be as offensive as they can to absolutely everyone because they know they can get away with it. I mean, these people aren't grateful to have a platform. They're just assholes. There are endless attacks on Andrew Torba, co-creator of Gab, telling him to go fuck himself. Why? Because they know that they'll never be held accountable for their actions. And that's really the core of the problem at Gab. There is zero accountability because everyone is terrified to even appear to be open to censorship. And the racist shits know it. They purposely push the envelope as far as they can, getting as close to the very few rules as they can, just daring the administrators to throw them off so a massive shitstorm of anti-Gab rhetoric can begin anew, screaming about censorship and what a horrible place Gab is. It's just absurd. Now, yes, the vast majority of them are probably just trolls, but the second you let the trolls set up shop, you're doomed. And these people seem to think that Torba and company, they owe them a place to hang out and spew their racist screed. They think that they run the show, and at the moment, they're right. They do control things because nobody on Gab will take any action to establish rightful control. I really don't understand that. It just makes the whole place a disgusting cesspool. But you know what everyone seems to forget? That Gab is a business. It exists to make money. I would presume that the people who own Gab want to make a living off their site. I just don't see how they can if they have a bunch of idiots constantly trying to drive the site into the ground. Because like it or not, that's exactly what happens every time one of these racist trolls decides they're going to piss people off for the sake of pissing people off. This kind of thing simply can't continue. And yeah, I can hear it now. Free speech! You can't restrict free speech! But you can't even have free speech unless the people exercising that free speech recognize some kind of accountability and responsibility. Free speech does not give you the right to be an asshole on someone else's dime. Because even if these idiots are paying their monthly fee to be a member, and most of them are not, that's not nearly the kind of financial investment that the owners have in the site. And frankly, I think their investment is a lot more important than some idiot troll on the internet. Of course, I'm just an outsider. What do I know, right? I mean, other than running a couple of companies in my day to great financial success, I clearly have no idea how business actually operates. And I get how the site was originally developed, but I'm sure that the owners never imagined the kind of abject trolling that they'd be getting from people who just want to tear things down for shits and giggles. And that's clearly what a lot of these people are doing. I mean, if you go looking, there are people who routinely say things just because they're allowed to say them. Well, hey, great, they can get away with racial slurs. So now every single post becomes little more than racial slurs. They can insult anyone and everyone, so that's exactly what they do. But somehow being able to do whatever they want makes them go to the extremes just because there are extremes. And that's why most websites have rules. Because without rules, people online, people with no accountability to anyone or anything, can and will go as far as they can because they can't be held responsible for anything. They can just change names and try again. They can just change email accounts and try again. Hell, they can just get a VPN and try again. What's anyone gonna do? And this has been going on for ages. Sometimes it almost makes me feel sorry for Facebook and Twitter. Sometimes. Almost. But they're censoring on ideological grounds. They're stopping people from saying things that might offend others. But Gab isn't stopping anyone from doing anything, including driving the site straight into the ground. Gab's registry company won't put up with the garbage that goes on there. And I honestly don't blame them. Shit rubs off on everyone, and it makes everyone smell. The idea of having a free and open internet might appeal to a lot of people, but at the moment, that's not the world we live in. It's amazing how many people simply don't know that, who seem to think that the internet can be made to be uncensorable without tearing the whole thing down and rebuilding it from scratch. Of course, none of these people want to be responsible for doing any of that. They figure the world just owes them free speech with no accountability, so you better get on that right now because they feel a racist screed coming on. They have no idea how the First Amendment works, and it's clear from how they act and what they demand that they're functionally illiterate when it comes to the real world. I wish I could say I was surprised, but I'm not. And when I point reality out to them, they scream at me like that will somehow change the real world. They want it, they think they deserve it, so everybody better deliver right now with no inconvenience or cost to them. These people are just idiots of the highest order. The fact is, people have to recognize that if they're not paying the bills, they have to follow someone else's rules. And the people running Gab have to recognize that if they can't retake control from the trolls, they're not going to have a business to run for very much longer. Anyway, what do you think? Is free speech worthwhile without demanding accountability for the things that people say? Because the only people who seem to want that are the trolls and the extremists. Gab has a decision to make, and their very existence hinges on what they choose to do. They can double down on free speech with no responsibility, and probably lose their site, or they can recognize that the people who are causing all of their problems, they don't have their best interests at heart. And I think that's the real thing. The people who are doing all the damage don't fundamentally care about Gab. They don't care if it lives or dies. They'll just move on to somewhere else and demand their right to spew their hate with no accountability and drive that place into the ground as well. There's no vested interest in doing what's best for Gab, only what floats their individual boat at any particular time. Gab has to recognize that it's protecting people who are inherently not on their side. It honestly can't be that hard to see.
Everything changes.